Welcome back to another reading and correcting. With me, Kindar, the Tiger Writes, and Ty, the Tiger Supervisor. These are where I read a chapter from one of my stories and correct it as I go. If you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch. And if you are looking to support me, that is on my Patreon. Today, we are doing chapter 20 of The Captain's Heart. Gralgiran paused in the archway leading to engineering. Jeremy was at the reactor, laughing at something Turek said. The other four technicians went about their business without paying the duo any attention, which he considered a good thing. Only a few days, and they had gotten used to the Earther's presence. He'd wanted to give him the space Jeremy wanted, but Quirk had asked he come up with an excuse to visit and report what happened. He approached. I get how he feels, Jeremy told Turek, especially after I had a bunch of scientists make changes to my reactor as part of their test and just leave them in once they were done, completely ignoring how they'd impact the next group's experiments. Turek looked at him when Gralgiran was half a dozen steps away, and Jeremy tensed. He had the medication bottle as the hunter joined in hand. As the hunter joined him, but instead of taking one, he stared at it. Alpha? Turek asked, and he focused on the male. How close is he to being able to repair the reactor? Closer than when you asked yesterday, the hunter replied. His tone almost dubious, but not at the point where I'll have to mislead him. Jeremy's breathing slowed, and some of the tension left his body. What were you talking about? I was telling him about the last time we were berthed at Kelser for the structural upgrade and how you had to order Alex planet bound so he wouldn't hover around the team out of fear one of them would touch his reactor. Gralgiran chuckled. That had been a battle worthy of ballads, and he still suspected the engineer had made it back during the process a few times. In return, he was telling me about a group of scientists who have no respect for his work, making changes to it without consulting him. From what I've worked out, Earthers are like the Garans, in that their division between those who make something and those who maintain it aren't as strict as us. And like the Ridoshi, in that they have groups of people whose sole work seems to be thinking without care for if there's an application for those thoughts or not. Is that what they were testing on his reactor? Trick stared, then shook himself. You could ask him directly, he offered. Gralgiran was tempted. It was why he'd learned Earther, to speak with him. But even though Jeremy was no longer tense, he kept looking at the bottle as if it was the source of his comfort. It's too early. Yes, it's what they were doing. Earthers have a council of those scientists, and they are trying to make up the centuries of difference between their antimatter tech and that of the Federation by having those scientists think of ways and testing them on his reactor. Don't they know that once they are accepted in, the Federation will share the technology? Should I try to find that out? No, he said after considering. Stay on the one hunt. Did he mention how much antimatter those scientists are costing him? No, but unless they affect the power it needs to produce, I don't see why the consumption would change. And I think that would fall to the engineer's design, not what they are doing with it. Thank you, Hunter. He left to send Queric his report. Gralgiran paused after stepping onto the bridge, only a bridge that was far more crowded than it had any rights to be, short of in the middle of a battle against an overwhelmingly larger fleet. There certainly shouldn't be this many people while at neutral dock and at minimum activity. And to make matter worse, what he made out of the screen between the heads showed and their laughter showed they were watching a ballad. He growled. and the reaction wasn't as instant as he'd like. Before he set about chastising the now mostly at attention males and females, he noticed he didn't know a good number of them. He almost complained about the presence of civilians on his bridge, but he remembered he didn't have enough fluent hunters yet to listen to the Earther's comm. Can one of you explain why you're watching ballads here while on duty when you can do so in one of the leisure alleys after you are no longer on duty? We can't watch those there. The civilian who'd been seated at the comm station said, "They're Earther ballads." "Seniel," he snarled, cursed him for believing the quartermaster hadn't made contact with his counterpart on the station. He knew better than to. That's not on him, Jorny said. He hadn't noticed her, still seated at her board. "I made it into their public system and came across a bank of their ballads. I thought studying how they compress the data for those would help me spread what I can get into, like their live video feeds. Earthers seem to be like us on that. Very little of their public areas aren't covered by camera. And how did your investigation in that lead to this?" He motioned to the now visible screen where Earthers were gathered on a vehicle bound to tracks. The body language seemed to indicate panic, but he couldn't make out why. "Boredom," the civilian who was assisting his hunt said. "I don't know if you've ever sat there listening to inane talk for whole shifts, but I have." Gralgiran growled and forced himself to remember he had a civilian before him. "I understand that it can be numbing, but you should have asked to be relieved instead." He turned to the orange-furred hunter. "You, on the other hand, Jirani, are a hunter. Do you have a justification for your part in allowing this to happen?" "I was bored too." He closed his eyes and breathed. "Father of us, grant me patience. Go off duty, Jirani, 2 shifts. Then I want to see you in my office." "Yes, Alpha." He waited until she left, then addressed the civilians. "I appreciate that not having access to the station isn't ideal, but the bridge is no place for you, even in quiet times like this." A "Yes, Captain," was accompanied by ears back and gaze floorbound. "I understand this isn't a situation you found yourself in before, so I will leave it at this. Now, please exit the bridge." When the only civilian left was the one assisting his hunt, and he looked unsure what to do. Then the only civilian left was the one assisting his hunt, and he looked unsure what to do. "You can go too. I'll see to it someone takes your place for the rest of the shift." He placed a hand before the male as he passed him to stop. As he passed, to stop him, and lowered his voice so he could think the 2 hunters at their boards wouldn't hear. "I appreciate the help you've given us, but you aren't required to do this. If you don't feel you can last an entire shift, ask to be replaced, or tell me this isn't something you wish to do anymore. No one will hold the decision against you." The male looked uncertain again, then straightened. "I want to help, Alpha." Gralgiran forced the smile and made it friendly. "What is your name?" "Dex Gralgiran. Please don't call me that. Dex Gralgiran. You aren't a hunter. I know you mean it with respect, but to call me that puts you under my command. You don't have the training." He looked away, ears folded back. "Sorry, Captain. I didn't realize." "I know. Battles love to show us hunters as boastful and demanding of all to call us by our titles. But this is the real world. And rank bring duties and obligation. Keep that in mind when you feel like calling someone you aren't attached to by their title. Civilians have the freedom of addressing everyone by their names without consequence. Enjoy it." "Yes, Cap." He swallowed. "Yes, Gralgiran." He had He had the ex-girlfriend look at him and smile. Thank you. He let him go. You now, Cersei said, leaning back in her seat, that's exactly why they all revere you. She filled her tone with mocking. You entreating civilians like they don't have to respect our rank. He waited, watching her. He waited some more, then folded his ear threateningly and bared his teeth. Alpha, she finally added. That's better, he replied, the baring of teeth turning into a grin. He dropped into the seat for the comm board and looked at the ballad. They were still on the vehicle on the tracks. The tension was out of their body, but the discussion was serious. Do either of you know what this is? Long! Hertilis whined, stretching the word. They've been on that thing forever, and nothing's happening. A proper ballad would have resolved it by now. Gralgiran dismissed the ballad and switched his earbud to the board's frequency. Alpha? He asked, sounding almost outraged. I've had 5 lessons. I'm fluent enough for anything they're going to say on open channels. And they've been recording. They're being recorded if there's something I don't understand. But you're the Alpha. My hunt, my rules, Hertilis. That is the privilege of being an Alpha. You don't need to be here, Batrix. He told the male standing next to Girani. My hunter, Alpha, my responsibility. Gralgiran didn't like it, but his beta was right. That didn't mean he had to make it easy on the hunter. Tell me why I shouldn't have your leader shoulder your punishment, Girani. Her surprise told him she'd forgotten that was a possibility. It was a danger on a well-run ship. Punishment were rare enough. People could forget where responsibilities lay. He didn't do anything, Alpha. He allowed you to remain on duty when you clearly were no longer capable of the judgment a hunter requires. But, she closed her muzzle, her expression pained. Hopefully she'd realize how unbecoming her protest sounded. He looked to the beta. How did this happen, beta? I've grown complacent, Alpha. I should be relieved of my duty. Don't be an idiot, Batrix. How about you come up with something reasonable? Reduced leave, to be replaced with remedial training in team management and evaluation. And you think that's going to be enough? Journey had trouble. Journey had trouble keeping her worry from showing, let alone filling the office. I suppose you could add a good clawing to be sure the lesson sticks. The lessons stick, Alpha? You think I should have Jeremy administer them? No! The hunter exclaimed, and Gralgiran locked eyes with her. No? Care to explain where you gained the authority to go against your Alpha's orders? But it's not fair, she whined, all training forgotten. Bat's a good leader. He doesn't deserve to be clawed. Since when have an Alpha's order needed to be fair, let alone judged by one of his hunters? She looked away. Answer your Alpha, Batrix ordered. They don't, Alpha, she finally said, straightened by force, but the following word lacked their usual conviction. We die, so others may live. Tell me, crew, have you grown tired of the hunt? Making her crew while asking about the hunt had the wanted result of confusing her. Hopefully, in that confusion, she'd consider her answers carefully, but he continued. Beta Batrix instructed you that you were to rest for a shift when you asked for 3 to work on getting into the Earther system. I accepted it due to the time constraint, but the fact he needed to specify it forces me to question if you still understand what being a hunter means. Your actions here do not fill me with the confidence I want when addressing one of my hunters. I'm still a hunter, Alpha. He considered her. Then tell me, what should I do with a hunter that has demonstrated the lack of dedication to the hunt you have? Surprise had her look away, but when she looked forward again, her gaze was hard, although she wasn't looking at him. Removal of duty while attending mandatory counseling. Reinstitution happening only with the counselor's approval. Remedial basic training before being trusted with any hunter duty. Being subjected to the role of quarry until worth has been demonstrated. Gralgiran glanced at Beatrix, who seemed impressed. He too was. Enough, he didn't feel the need to add to it. Agreed. You are removed from duty until reinstated by a counselor. Use the time wisely, Girani. The freedom of being a civilian grants you the freedom being a civilian grants you has a cost. Many have been unprepared to pay it after years of living for the hunt. Remember that you are not alone. Your beta and the alpha are there to help if you need help. You may not be a hunter for now, but you are not being forgotten. Yes, she swallowed. Yes, Captain. You can go. He looked at Beatrix once she left. How about you? Do you really feel you deserve a clawing for missing how she was slipping? I failed her. Failure should have consequences. I think your conscience, knowing your ears to nubs, will be enough. You can relax. Sorry, Gralgiran. I know. And I trust this serves as a reminder we can't grow lax, so lax as to forget the hunt is always there, that the gods can call on us at any time. We belong to them. We die so others can live as they appoint. That is our place under them. Beatrix's discomfort was controlled. Yes, Alpha. I know you don't believe, Beatrix. My belief isn't needed. You answer to the gods instead of the generals, if you decide. I answer to you. You are my Alpha. You wonder if the ballads were right, that before his people's leader decided they were more important to the gods, the work of the hunter was simpler. They all knew their place, instead of having to balance on the point of a claw where getting cut was almost a certainty. You can go. Probably not. People always had their priorities, even when they all believed in the gods. And even when they acted for the gods, it wasn't always for the same ones. Actually, this should be singular. He brought up his list of friends. Once the shift is over, I'm heading to Threading to dance. Anyone interested? Tom was the first to respond with a yes, as he loved dancing. Crystal had to decline due to family duties. Dresderen had the next shift on duty, as had Litamir. Lilmarie, Bralin, and Miritel all agreed to join him there. And that concludes chapter 20 of The Captain's Heart. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like. If you want to know when the next chapter is going to be up, subscribe and hit the bell. If you want to read the story, it is up on Ream Story. And if you are looking to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch and YouTube. Links are in the notes. And with that, I shall wish you a good day.